Fianna Fáil has chosen the former Dublin GAA manager Jim Gavin to be its presidential election candidate. The announcement was made following a secret ballot of the party's TDs, senators and MEPs at Leinster House. Mr Gavin beat the Ireland South MEP Billy Kelleher by 41 votes to 29, a much closer margin than had been expected.
The two candidates contesting the Fianna Fáil presidential nomination arrived at Leinster House shortly after 10 o'clock this morning. They were given 10 minutes to address the party's TDs, senators and MEPs at 11:30. Some parliamentary party members were abroad and voted by proxy. By lunchtime, the result was out. Jim Gavin, rather than party stalwart Billy Kelleher, would be Fianna Fáil's standard bearer. The winner said it would be the fight of a lifetime.
Very privileged position. We've had a very robust competition, and I've been involved in competitions all my life, and I think this will be the toughest campaign that I've ever been involved in. But I've got great support from the parliamentary party. He
was also asked to outline some of his political platform.
You know, I see myself as a centrist. I'm a constitutional Republican. In terms of repeal of the 8th, it was a difficult moral decision for the country, but ultimately it became about women's rights and what was right for women and the right to choose. So I voted yes into repeal.
While the victory was clear, the result was closer than expected, reflecting an irritation among some in Fianna Fáil at the party leader pushing Jim Gavin hard. Micheál Martin dismissed suggestions that his leadership was now in question.
There was a referendum on Micheál Martin's leadership. It was less than a year ago. It was called the general election, and I think the people gave their answer.
There was a closing of the ranks. Billy Kelleher said the parliamentary party had had its say today, and he'd rally behind Jim Gavin.
I don't see votes in political parties as divisive. I actually see them as the bulwark of democracy, both internally in a party, but more importantly out in the streets as well, where you have ideas, you put forward your proposals, they're challenged, they're interrogated, and then ultimately a decision is made.
Jim Gavin now has over 6 weeks to explain to the Irish public who he is and outline his vision for the presidency. Should he win, the leader will have been proven to be right. Should he lose, the leader will have questions to answer.
Paul joins us now from Leinster House. A big challenge ahead now for a candidate with no political experience, Paul.
It is a considerable challenge, and he had something of a baptism of fire today when he had to wade into the media scrum outside Leinster House. When he was talking to the Fianna Fáil TDs and senators and MEPs, he tried to tell something about them. His vision for the presidency includes opening up Bóras na Uachtaráin, making it the people's house. He said he wanted to build communities and encourage volunteerism, and he also wanted to represent Ireland on the world stage when it came to its democratic and European values. But you'd have to say, David, that many of the other candidates will probably want to say the same thing. So, you know, Jim Gavin is going to go out and sell himself. He also has to sell his vision of the presidency. There will definitely be people in Dublin will know that this is the man who delivered 5 in a row when it came to the GAA football finals at Croke Park. But there's many people as well who don't know anything about sport, don't know Jim Gavin, and don't particularly have any reason to vote for him. So he's going to have to get into that zone where he's able to explain things, and part of that comes down to not having political experience. What is that going to mean? One would imagine as a former soldier he'll be calm under fire when it comes to media shots coming at him, but what's going to happen if he's in a big debate and one of the other contenders has a pop at him? What happens if he's caught on a question of policy? How is he going to react? The answer is we simply don't know. He's definitely going to start this campaign hoping that he will be able to connect with people, that he can electrify this race. But if he doesn't, if he falters, then we're going to come back to the question which you mentioned at the beginning: why did Micheál Martin put forward a political novice in a tilt for the Óras?
OK, we will be hearing from Jim Gavin later in the programme, but for now, Paul Cunningham at Leinster House, thank you. And saying with that story, we're joined now by the newly selected Fianna Fáil presidential candidate, Jim Gavin. You're very welcome. Thanks for joining us. Good to talk to you at last. You've been a bit elusive over recent weeks. Tell me, did Fianna Fáil come knocking on your door, or did you approach them?
They approached me, David, and thanks for having me on. They approached me a number of weeks ago. Some people who are connected with the party reached out to me and asked me would I consider meeting on Taoiseach and Micheál Martin, which I did. And over those conversations, it became quite apparent that my view of the presidency was a shared view of Fianna Fáil had, and I was happy then to having discussed it with my family and my friends, put my name forward for the candidacy for Fianna Fáil. OK,
did it take much persuasion, or did you decide straight away you were presidential?
No, it took a lot of reflection to see was this the right thing for myself and indeed for the country. I've served for 20 years in Óglaigh na hÉireann. my life has been really entwined by service to people, service to the community, service to the country, and that's what speaks to me. And you know, the office of the presidency, I think, is an active and an important office for the country, and that's why I put my name forward.
Okay, absolutely. An Ireland Thinks poll in last week's Sunday Independent was asked, what's the most important factor when deciding who to vote for? 42% knowledge of the Constitution, 21% political experience, 7% achievements in community or sporting worlds. That doesn't sound great for you, does it?
Well, I think I've touched points on all of those.
Well, not in politics, you haven't.
Well, in politics, but the presidential elections are not limited, David, to politicians. It never has been. The president is, in some ways, the first citizen and not the first politician. And we've seen that from Douglas Hyde all the way through to recent presidents.
Well, they all have, I mean, Douglas Hyde served in the Shannon. They've all had some political experience. I know you made a point earlier that Carúil O'Dowley and Mary McAleese hadn't served, but they both contested elections. They both had their names on a ballot paper before, and you haven't. And
there's not, that isn't the only way, I'd say to you, that you can serve your country. You know, I've served 20 years in Oakland here, and I served 15 years as a senior public servant with the Irish Aviation Authority. So my life has been defined by service. I've chaired the Citizens' Assembly for Dublin. The government asked me over 3 years ago to chair the North East Inner City Initiative to put investment into one of the most disadvantaged areas, a great part of Dublin, but one of the most disadvantaged areas. So I have, in my lifetime, I've been involved in service, as I said, for the people, for the community and for the country.
Well, I think that's very laudable, and a lot of people will agree that that is very laudable, but it doesn't necessarily qualify you for president. And you've got to the age of 54 without apparently expressing a political opinion on any topic whatsoever. That's some achievement, isn't it?
Well, in my time in Oakland Heron, legally, ethically, we couldn't.
Sure.
We can't be a part of a political.
But you've been out of Oakland Heron
and I've carried that ethos forward in terms of my public service. Indeed, when I was manager of the Dublin football team, you know, over 12 consecutive years, 7 with the senior team, you know, I'm representing the Dublin GAA. It wasn't my position, I believed, to express my thoughts on referendum or anything.
Okay, so you told journalists earlier that you voted in favour of repealing the 8th, you voted in favour of marriage equality, but you didn't feel the need to take a public leading role on that, which some other people in the GAA did. Yeah,
well, in terms of repealing the 8th, the repeal of the 8th, I mean, it was a morally difficult decision for the nation to make. Ultimately, it came down to what's best for women, and that women could make that decision. In terms of marriage, I'm all for equality. And I think that sent a really strong signal globally that Ireland is inclusive, that we welcome all.
OK. Billy Kelleher congratulated you on your selection, but his statement also contained an interesting line, "I'm a Fianna Fáil man to my core," which rather suggests that you're not.
Well, I'm born in Dublin on the East Coast. My roots come from West Clare, and my father, Jimmy, God rest him, and my mum come from Devil Era country as I grew up, and they would have known the Paddy Hillary. So that area, as you might know, is deep in Fianna Fáil history. Both my grandfathers were active during the War of Independence, and I consider myself a constitutional Republican. OK, but the Mail on Sunday quoted Fine Gael's sources at the weekend saying they thought you were a supporter of theirs, and indeed that they approached you about running for Europe, did they? They did, and I respectively declined that invitation. Why? Because I don't see myself in terms of, at that time, being a politician serving in Europe. I look at the role of the presidency as a very important role for Ireland. There are certain constitutional powers that are important, but there's also a role for the president to be active and energetic in communities, to advocate for community organisations, those who care, an active part in the North, and build on the work that previous presidents have done in terms of a shared Ireland initiative. And the last bit I'd say is the president has a vital role in terms of representing Ireland abroad and connecting with the diaspora as assets of the nation. OK, and I'm sure the other candidates might say something very similar. But you were, as you say, you were in the Army, you were in the Air Corps, you served with the United Nations. Do you support the abolition of the triple lock? For me, the Article 5 of the Constitution is very clear. We're a democratic, sovereign and independent state. And my view is that we should have the confidence as a nation in terms of the executive, the government, the Oireachtas, to make decisions where we put our troops. That's a yes then? That is a yes.
OK, that Ireland Thinks poll that I referred to in the Sunday Independent says your support is twice as high among men as among women. That's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
Well, the biggest influencer in my life was my mother, Anne Gavin ní Bhán. She was a teacher. She created, I suppose, an environment for me to be my best. My work in the northeast inner city, I've seen the phenomenal work that women do in that area. I have a young daughter, so I'm very connected to the challenges of young people in terms of social media, in terms of AI, and all the other challenges, David, that they have in their lives.
OK, obviously most people would know you if they know you as a GAA manager. Great success with Dublin. I don't recall it being particularly popular in the rest of the country, but it be that as it may. I've read interviews. I've spoken to sports journalists who covered your time in the GAA in Dublin. And what I hear again and again, focused, driven, controlled, doesn't show emotion. One interview in GAA.ie, and I think it was meant as a compliment, described you as cold and calculating. Is that what Ireland needs in a president? Well,
I had a specific role to do with Dublin GAA to get the best out of that group of players. I was very fortunate enough and a lucky general in some ways that I came across that group at that time. And they had their success. My role now is to get out into the communities around Ireland to show the authentic me, to show how passionate I am for the country that I believe in. I believe that the presidency has a vital role for Ireland, and I look forward over the next 45 days to visiting every constituency, every county, as best I can, okay, to rally the troops and vote for me as their president.
OK, well, no doubt we'll speak to you and the other candidates again. Jim Gavin, thank you very much.
Thanks, David.